Hello and welcome back to the Passionpreneur series. This is Brandy, your host, and I'm excited to have you back for another awesome episode. Today we have something totally different for you. We're not going to be diving so much into business, so to speak, or marketing or social media or branding. I want to take this in a whole different direction. For me, coaching has been huge. It has elevated my business, my personal well-being, my soul, everything. And I'm a huge component of just promoting how invaluable getting a coach, working on your mindset can be. So I really want to take the time today to dive deep into that. And who better to do that with than with Jessica Thiefels. Jessica and I literally just met. We haven't even met in person now that you live halfway across the country. But listening to your podcast, checking out your website, I knew you were the best person to bring on board for this to help us in this area. So Jessica, welcome to the show, first of all.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And I would love for just to go and jump in, tell us a little bit about you, your backstory, and, what brought you here.
Yeah. So I'm an entrepreneur. I run an organic content marketing consulting agency. So I do coaching and consulting around marketing for mid-size B2B organizations and small businesses and entrepreneurs. But that is sort of like, I got into that because that was my career. But as I started growing, like you said, working with a coach, I had been interested in personal development, and I've been a personal trainer and a health coach. So I've always been interested in both mental and physical health. And so I was reading books and sort of improving myself, and it felt like I was running this amazing business. I was living at the time in San Diego, basically living my dream life. I had a house, I had an amazing husband. On paper, everything was great, but there was like this, the only way I can describe it is like this dark cloud that it felt like was like following me around, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And a girlfriend of mine had just signed up for like a coaching retreat that was followed by 3 months of coaching. And honestly, at that point, I'd never really thought of like a business coach or a life coach. I'd never really considered that. I've always been a huge proponent of therapy. I've always gone to therapy, for different periods of time. And I was like, that's interesting. They're coaching. And so, which is something I talk about a lot, is that I sort of had that intuitive hit, that sort of poking up, and the universe did what the universe does when you set your mind on something, and it presented me with a coach. I was at this networking event. There was like 3 people there. There was practically no one. And then my coach, who is now my coach, was presenting. And what he was saying was just clicking. And I was going to leave without saying anything. I don't know why. I was like nervous to give him my business card to be like, I kind of want to work with you. But I was like, no, listen to your intuition, do it. And I did. And that's been life-changing. And that's really helped me. It's really opened me up to this new space of mindset. And a big part of that has been trusting in my own knowledge. So I think for a long time, I had this interest in personal development or whatever, but not only did I not really see like a way to do anything with that, but I don't think I trusted that I had the knowledge to share with other people. And so working with a coach sort of helped me realize a few things, like I'm really smart. Like, shit, I'm actually a really smart person. Oh, I don't know if I can swear on this.
No, you really can.
I swear on my podcast, so I didn't even.
You're good.
It's me, just Jess. That I'm really smart, I'm really capable, and I have so much to offer. And I have this voice that people have been telling me not to use, that people want to hear. My whole life I was just like loud and moody and bold, and that was too much for people. And so working with a coach sort of like opened up all these little pockets within me that were just waiting to almost be given permission to open.
Right.
And so that has led me down this path where I am now, where I don't really have a service. I'm not coaching in terms of mindset at this point. I would like to be running events, and I'd ideally like to start doing like 7-day, really practical hands-on retreats, because I'm all about keeping mindset stuff practical. But I'm just sharing, building a community around. I wrote in December in 2020, one of my goals was to start a conversation about the power of intention. And so that's what I'm doing now with my podcast, which I'm so excited about, Mindset Reset Radio, with my Instagram community, with my subscribers on my website. I'm just slowly, piece by piece, building out, as I like to lovingly call my empire. and and I wrote a book. Last year, my husband and I traveled for 8 months around the world. We circumnavigated the globe, literally. Yeah. And in doing that, I was running my business and writing a book. So I also have a book on the way, and I'm going to publish a few smaller books before that. So I'm all in, and that's sort of living life with intention. That's what has gotten me here, and what I know will help other people get wherever they want to go.
My goodness. Okay. So that was not just a little thing.
Yeah. Sorry, was that too much?
No. I love it. I love it. Okay. So let's break all this down, because I feel like we need to cover as much as we can in this time, because so many things of what you just said were powerful and the audience needs to know. So just to reiterate, the audience watching, a lot of them are, we'll call them baby entrepreneurs, because they're maybe 1 or 2 years into their business. The other side, they're side hustlers. So they haven't really dipped all the way into, for, different reasons, maybe financially, it's just not time yet, or just that, like you were saying, just not trusting themselves, not fully there believing that what they have to offer is enough. So jumping back, I love your titles for yourself. So entrepreneur, podcast host, mindset shifter. Mindset shifter, huge. So let's dive into each one of these. So speaking from the lens of an entrepreneur, I feel like you provide so much value because you've been in that place. You've started your own business. You've done that for years, and you found a way to now shift that into another way of offering a service, of being of service to others. So starting with mindset, what are some things that have really, some tools, resources that have really helped you to become the woman you are today, where you do have that confidence, that trust in yourself?
Well, one thing that I grew up with my mom telling me was, if you have to make it work, you will. And for her, that came from a literal place. My father was an alcoholic and a drug addict, and other things that come with what happens when that happens. And they separated, they divorced when I was like maybe a little bit more than a year old.
Oh, wow.
And so for her, it was literally looking at this child and saying, I have to make this work. I have no other choice. But that was instilled in me at a really young age, in a really powerful way, in a way of like, you have what it takes to make this work. And so when I started my business, I was a VP at a company, and I was really like tugging back and forth. Do I leave this money? This is so much money. How can I walk away from it? And I had to make this mindset shift that was not only, if you have to make it work, you will, in terms of a business, because my business at the time was a side hustle for many years, but also belief in self. I honestly had to come down to the fact that I believed if I had 40 hours a week to put toward my own business, I would make it work. Right. So that self-belief was so, so critical. So those have been really huge in terms of my running my business and making time to slow down. That has been one of the biggest shifts from traveling, because my husband and I mean, we were traveling, we weren't with anybody, we were just by ourselves. So we just like slept in till like 10 a.m. every day. We would work odd hours. And I quickly realized our goal was to work no more than 20 hours a week, each of us individually.
Oh, wow.
By the end of the trip, I was working maybe 10 hours a week. And I was still making the same money, my same full-time income that I was making when I was here, living in the States, waking up, forcing myself out of bed at 7 a.m., working until 8 p.m. some nights. And so I realized that there was space to be able to run my business and slow down. And when I slowed down, my business actually got better, because I was able to to quiet things down and tune in. That's one of the biggest things I talk about in terms of being intentional. Is the first step in being intentional is tuning in. What do you need to do? What do you want to do? What stories are you telling yourself that are holding you back from what it is that you want to do, or that are completely covering your eyes? You don't even know that you want to pursue that because you've been told your whole life you're this person or that person. Until we slow down and tune in, we can't even start making those choices for ourselves. For the majority of us, I find. So those have been huge.
So immediately you say slow down and my heart like skips a beat. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. What do you mean I can't be working all day, every day,
What do
Saturday
you
to
mean?
Sunday?
But yet I hear your story of going from 40 to 20 to less than 10 and still making the same amount of money or more.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm intrigued. So like, what does that actually mean? How did you do that?
So there was some business pieces of that. Outside of the mindset, the belief, the intentionality. Well, I guess part of that intentionality was seeing that it wasn't feasible for me to continue running my business solely by myself as it was growing. It was becoming harder and harder to keep up. I write and edit a ton of content. And so at one point, I was maybe sending out 30 articles a month.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
in addition to everything else that I was doing, managing social media for clients, doing content strategies, etc. And so I had to make a very intentional decision to bring other people in. And so I have 5 writers who are contractors for me that I send assignments every month. So delegating, I actually wrote an article for She Owns It about the power of delegating. It's so hard as a business owner, especially a new
Yes.
entrepreneur, for
Yes.
so many reasons. 1, we want to control it. 2, we want to make sure it's done perfect. 3, we don't want to spend the money. 4, it takes time to explain how to do it. There's so many reasons. But when I picked the right people, and I think that's so key, I picked writers that I know, who I've worked with. I knew that if I invested a little bit of time into getting them up to speed and getting them where I needed them, that it would pay off exponentially. And it definitely has.
Mm.
I also hired a bookkeeper because I don't do money. I say that my
That's
husband,
huge.
yeah, I say my husband is the CFO of my life and my business, because he technically is the CFO of the business. So he always did money stuff, but it started becoming too much for him as well. And so it's like, okay, let's bring in a bookkeeper now. So I have writers, a bookkeeper, and that just opens me up to focus on other things and to work less. And then the other piece was figuring out what we're all trying to figure out. How can we do less and make more? And so for me, that was a matter of figuring out, which I'm still doing, is what services can I delegate so I can just get the client, I can manage the client and make the money and just pay a little bit for someone else to do the work, aka writing. So for me, I'm really trying to shift very heavily into just creating content, because I know I can get that work in, I can assign it out, and I'm still making really good money on every piece that I send out, or that I do for a client. So those were the 2 really big things that allowed me to really work less.
So when you talk about tuning in, taking
Mm-hmm.
that time to actually do that, what did that look like? What did that consist of?
Yeah, it consisted of just taking intentional quiet time. My coach, he was referring to someone else when he said this, but it's called like intentional silence. So literally just sitting with no music, no people, in a quiet room with the door shut, maybe staring out the window, and just bringing an intention into that silence. So maybe the intention is, I'm really nervous about this new service offering and how to launch it. And so maybe I would take quiet time to just let the answers come to me, because the answers are already within us. And I know that sounds corny, but it is
No.
so true. It
Yes.
really is. And I like to think of the mind as like tabs in an internet browser. And when you get quiet, you close out all those tabs, and suddenly it's so much easier to access what's happening in here. And that's for business and for life.
Mm,
Um, yeah.
that's huge.
Yes, it's been massively shifting for me, life-changing for me, especially in the last probably month or 2, where I always hated morning routines. I hated the rigidity of it. I hated waking up knowing I like had to meditate or I had to do yoga. And
Mm.
so I didn't do it for a long time. And just recently, I sort of like felt called one morning to just sit outside and meditate. And then the next day I felt called again. And then all of a sudden I was just doing it. And now I do it every single morning. And it's not just necessarily meditation. It's listening to whatever music feels good for me. Maybe that's like some light guitar. Maybe that's like some yoga music or something. I just search on Spotify.
Yeah.
That's journaling. Journaling is so huge for tuning in. So for me, pulling it into a really supportive was my goal morning routine. Something that supported me in my creative endeavors, which is really my focus right now, is like letting go of that left brain that's like business, rigid, to my right flowing brain, which is more creative and relaxed and open. So you can sort of be, more planned with it like that, or just, I like to say, just make time. The biggest part of that is awareness. So just making time, like setting an alarm on your phone for 3 times a day, maybe 10 a.m., 2 p.m., and 6 p.m. And every time it goes off, just like take 2-3 minutes to just tune in. Take a deep breath. How am I feeling right now? What's coming up? And just sort of build that into the way that you operate. And then it will just become really natural.
I love that. That actually seems really doable.
That is my goal. I want to
Yes.
make this easy and practical and totally doable, no matter how busy, which I don't even use that word, but how busy you feel that you are. Because we control, this sounds crazy too, but I realize like we control time. I control what I can get done in a day and the time that I have to get it done. That's a powerful realization when you can get there.
I forget the law now. It's totally escaped me, but and it's not Pavlo, but it's an important law, but it's that whatever amount of time, of space, of anything that you're given, you will find a way to use all of it. So talking about time, if you give yourself, I've got 2 hours to knock A, B, C, D out off my list, you'll find a way to make it happen.
Yeah.
If you say I have 8 hours, you will use all 8 hours and maybe still need more.
Yeah.
So yeah, to me, that just goes, again, you're right. You control time, and it's about being intentional with that time.
Yes.
And using it the best way possible.
Yeah, I'm really prioritizing. That's something that I like to tell people because so often I feel like people get busy because they're like, oh, I need to get this assignment done ahead of time. I need to get this work done, blah, blah, blah. I need to deliver for this client. But it's like, yes, that would be ideal. If you had the time, do it. But if it's not reasonable for you to get it done, like I have a Trello, I use Trello for my to-do list.
Oh, I love Trello.
And so I am always, what I like to say, renegotiating my to-do list. I'm always renegotiating it through the day. Okay, this is not important today. This is not important today. Moving it over to, the next day or 2 days later or something. So really getting clear, like what needs to happen today, and then be okay with letting that be what you get done.
I love that. Yeah, she's not my coach, but she's a coach that I follow her podcast, and I read a lot of her work. And she talks a lot about understanding the difference between a priority and urgent. And a lot of times we confuse the two. And so, especially in our business, something that might be urgent, but isn't a priority, and some things that are a priority to move you forward, to move your business forward, to bring money in, might not seem urgent, but in the long game, they're so important. And so really taking the time to look at your to-do list and see where those things fall in those 2 categories.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
So I would love to spend just a few more minutes talking about the morning routine, because you got me thinking about that now. So I've been reading so much of people who have made it, as we say, people we aspire to be like. And, they'll talk about their morning routine. I wake up at 4 a.m. I spend 20 minutes on this, 30 minutes on that, 45 minutes on this. And then, at 6 a.m., I start my day. I answer emails, and everything is blocked out. To me, that makes me anxious and seems very rigid as well. I would love for you just to give us some examples of not going that route, but creating a routine that feels good for us.
Oh, I love that you're asking this question, because I just did a podcast episode on this with one of my very good friends, who's also just a brilliant mindset, empowerment, embodiment coach. So it's all about what we had decided when we were talking on the podcast is it's all about finding what feels good for you. It's just all it is a space of time that you dedicate to solely yourself, not your business, not your emails, not your husband. I have to like literally tune my husband out. Like I can't handle his energy while I'm doing that. Like he's like
Oh my goodness.
working. He wakes up and like goes right into work. And I'm like, I can't have that near me. Like I wear headphones so I don't hear his typing.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it's all about what is going to support you. So let me give you so many things you could do. You could just drink tea or coffee and stare out the window, literally. Just look at the birds, listen to what's happening. No news, no newsletter, newspaper, no social media. You could meditate with a guided meditation. I love Insight Timer. That's my favorite
That's a
meditation.
good one. Yeah.
So good. You can meditate, and you could do literally, they have 2-minute meditations on there. You know, if you're feeling really resistant to that meditation, starting really small is perfect. You could just meditate yourself, just put music on and focus on breathing in and breathing out and keeping coming back to your breath. You could do yoga. You could go for a run. You could work out. You could just stretch. There's so many things. It's whatever feels good for you. And my girlfriend gave a great example of if you're a mom. And so many moms say, my day starts when my kid's day starts. And it's like, even if for you, you only have like a pocket of 5 minutes where your kids are in the room getting ready, and just take your tea and stand and just like tune everything out for 5 minutes. Ideally, you're able to carve more than that, even if it's at the end of the day or something, you know, when the kids are sleeping. But it's just what feels good for you. So it's just picking a time and, let's say, dedicating even just 10 minutes to you right when you wake up. It's such a sacred time of the day for you to set your intention. For me, I really use it to figure out how I'm feeling. So I journal every day too.
Mhm.
Not extensive unless I'm feeling into it. But usually all I journal is how I'm feeling right now. And I literally write, I take out a feelings wheel. If you Google feelings wheel, it'll list all of the different feelings, because it's so easy to just say I'm feeling good. But let's go
Right.
deeper. I'm feeling free. I'm feeling open. I'm feeling hopeful. I'm feeling excited, whatever it is. And then if I'm not feeling great, if I'm feeling maybe stressed or anxious or frustrated or irritable, then I say, how do I want to feel? And then I write down how I want to feel. And then I just breathe in. I see myself feeling that day, that way throughout the day. And then I bring that into my meditation and in my movement and whatever feels good. So it's just a time to tune into you, you know, however that feels. Just carve that time, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 30 minutes. For me, it's usually about 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But even that you don't have to be rigid about. Maybe some days you have more time than others, and that's great too. So that's what I would say.
So what does living intentional mean to you?
Living with intention means not just having a plan, not just having a goal, not just committing to something, but actually choosing that thing day in and day out, especially when it's hard to make that choice. So I talk about intentional living and the power of intentional choice, which is something we all have. I traveled the world for 8 months, and I'm not special. I don't have a lot of money. I'm a very normal person. The only thing that makes me different is I decided I wanted it, and then I went toward it.
Hmm.
And that requires making choices. When my husband and I moved to San Diego, we realized that we needed to, this was when we were like 23. So you imagine we're like going out to bars all the time, like partying all the time, like early 20s energy.
Right.
But we realized we needed to save money. So we couldn't go out anymore. So we had to constantly be choosing, okay, people can come over and have drinks, but then we're going to stay in because we don't want to spend money. So it's making that choice when the choice is hard to make, because that's usually when we falter and we stop living with intention, and we start choosing what's easy or fun in the moment and sort of lose sight of that long-term goal.
Right. You're giving me so many good nuggets here. I'm just like, my notepad is like almost full.
I love that.
Oh my goodness. Okay. We're almost running out of time. This is crazy. So I want to make sure we get into your 31-day mindset reset challenge.
Yeah.
I know something special you're giving the Passionpreneur audience. I would love for you to tell us more about that and what that looks like.
Yeah. So again, as I said, I really want to make this stuff practical, and shifting your mindset and shifting into a place that maybe is more open or more creative or more calm or more powerful as a business owner is all about those little shifts that lead to the big breakthrough. And
Mhm.
so the 31-day challenge is just totally self-paced. You start it whenever you want to start it, and then you do it for 31 days. And it's just one little thing to do every day. So it might be focusing on a specific journal prompt. It might be asking yourself a certain question. It might be doing something physically to represent what's happening internally. And it's all based on my experience and what I've gone through. So I'm not a certified coach by any means. I'm just someone who's like really left no stone unturned, and really have like had the moments of crying on the kitchen floor after a coaching call, not knowing what I was doing and what I was feeling, and digging into the childhood pain and the trauma that was deep down so low. And because of that, I've emerged into this space that feels really light and really creative and wonderful. So it's all about getting you there, one teensy tiny little thing at a time. And each day builds upon itself. So ideally, you can take some of these things with you from the day you do it, maybe for the rest of your life. And there's like a little printable calendar. I love having something like that to track my
Yeah,
days.
for sure.
You can print that and put it on your fridge or wherever you're more likely to see it. And just start doing that shifting, start digging in and playing and seeing what comes out at the end.
Jessica, this has been amazing. Oh my God.
Thank you. I'm so happy to share.
Oh my goodness. One of the things I really set out to do with this series was, find people who are so different, so unique in their like chosen field.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I do enough research on everyone to know what I'm getting into, but I really want to walk into these conversations, just and be surprised. And this was definitely a surprise.
Good. Yes. A
I
good
mean,
surprise, I
I know
hope.
I've learned so much. Um, is there any last takeaway you want to leave with us?
Hmm. Question yourself more often, not in a negative way, in a positive way. My goal is to flip your perspective on what's possible. So when you're coming up against that fear, that anxiety, flip the script. Whether that's, what if this does work? What if I am amazing? What if I am totally kicking ass and I just don't see it yet? Flip your own script, blow your own mind. It's totally possible.
That's cool. I mean, I know for a fact that's something I don't do
Mm-hmm.
often, let alone enough. And I can imagine there's a lot of us out there. It's so easy to immediately go to doubt than the positive.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Thank you so
Oh,
much for
Jessica,
having
thank
me.
you.
Yeah.
How
So
can we
excited.
stay connected to you?
So you can find my podcast on Spotify and Apple, Mindset Reset Radio.
Nice.
You can find me on Instagram. That's like my main community. And I'm just at Jessica Thiefels. You can find me on Twitter. I talk mostly marketing. So if you're interested in content marketing, all it is just tons of nuggets of ideas and tips. Really straightforward, really practical. With a little bit of mindset stuff I'm starting to sprinkle in. And you can find me, my website is jessicathiefelsauthor.com. So that's my mindset website. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, wait, we didn't cover your book or your books. You got to tell us about those.
It's coming. Everything that we've talked about here in this call is really the foundation for the book, which is just, it's a practical guide for chasing your dreams. So it takes you through the mindset stuff, and then we talk about super practically how to create a plan. I have frameworks for you to start planning and setting goals, and then the other books, there'll be little Amazon shorts that I'm going to play around with. So I'm really
Oh,
excited.
cool.
Those will be really story-based. My book is very story-based because all of this is based on my experiences, but those books will really be based in telling the stories and my experiences, and then pulling in, again, I feel like a broken record, those practical tips and advice for ways that people can do that themselves. So I post all about that on my Instagram. So if there's ever any update, it will be there. So definitely follow
Perfect.
along there.
Do you foresee any sort of online courses or trainings in the works coming from the books and just where all
Definitely.
this is going?
Definitely. I really feel called to start a community of some sort. I did that in San Diego and then we left for travel and I couldn't maintain it. So I'd like to start that again. And yes, I would love to do some virtual trainings while we're sort of all still virtual. And ideally, my long term or my big goal right now, maybe in the next, I'll say 3 years, but maybe more like the next 2 years, is to do like a big in-person retreat with like maybe 10 or 15 people.
Nice.
I don't know if one-on-one coaching feels right for me, so I'm not really leaning in that direction necessarily. But I like working with a lot of people and I like getting hands-on. So having that sort of like small circle of people, that's what I'm looking to do.
That's awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
final question.
Okay.
Have you found your passion?
Yes, most definitely. Helping people live with intention, flipping your perspective on what's possible. That's my favorite thing. I love when I see a light bulb go off for somebody and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
interesting. I never thought about it that way. And I'm like, yes, my job is done.
Oh, I love it. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for your time and your words of wisdom and just sharing all this with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And I want to have you back here soon.
Yeah.
When the books come out and
Mhm.
everything. We would definitely have to do a follow-up to this.
That sounds great. I'm ready for it. You let me know.
Thank you so much. You guys, another great episode of Passionpreneur series. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget the email that follows will have all of the cliff notes, nuggets, words of wisdom from this series, this episode. There'll also be links on how you can connect with Jessica and check out her podcast for sure, and so many other things. So thank you again, Jessica. We'll be in touch soon. Have a great day, you guys, and we'll see you tomorrow.